Hello and welcome to FatbossTV. Today we're having a look at the Fel Lord Zakuun encounter in the Hellfire Citadel on the 6.2 PTR.
Yes, and this encounter is great, and the reason why I say it's great is because it brings something that's slightly different to every other boss we tested on the PTR. The main thing that really is sort of going on with this encounter is that in order for you to defeat it, you kind of need to communicate with the rest of your raid team, not only very precisely, but very quickly, because you have to react within like a certain time frame to waves that are slowly being sent out towards pillars, and if you don't block the waves and the pillars are hit, they'll explode and pretty much instantly kill your entire raid.
Yeah, it's kind of bad.
It's a bit messy, yeah. And the cool thing about these pillars is that they also spawn in random locations, but you do get to pick which one you want to spawn out of those different locations, which we'll sort of expand on towards the end of this video. But before we go into anything, just to give a quick disclaimer, this is PTR footage. Anything could change before this boss does come out on live servers, and when the boss is released on live servers, do expect a guide up on the channel. It will be released very quickly. There'll be a link for it in either the description or in the comments. You can go check that out if you was expecting a guide.
Now this boss is a two-phase fight. He will have a phase where he's wielding an axe and he's wailing on your tanks with big slow hits, and he will have a phase where he throws his axe away and he will start pummeling on your tanks with fist attacks and doing a bunch of AoE damage, and it gets pretty goddamn messy, and he will just constantly switch between those two phases until he eventually dies.
Now he'll always start off in the axe phase, and his main ability in this phase, so your tanks to worry about at least, is something called Soul Cleave. Now, when he casts this on the tanks, it will do a large amount of damage to one of them and place a debuff on them that increases the amount of shadow damage they take by 50% for a minute and a half. On top of this, you'll also be disembodied, which places you into the Shadow Realm. And this place is really cool, but sadly, we don't have any footage for it.
Yeah, it's pretty much the whole idea while you're inside. If I'll paint a mental image for you. There's waves coming at you, avoid the waves. If you're hit by waves, you fuck everyone outside. But the main thing is you're in there for around 10 to 15 seconds. Each time you go in, it's more and more scary. But when you do a merge, you also produce waves. And these are the waves that we're talking about that just hurt a shit ton and fuck about with pillars. So basic idea is when you do come out, try and be away from everyone else, so you're not gooing all over them.
Another thing that will also produce waves is the cavitation ability. This generally is faced towards the raid. The boss will just sort of turn around and send out a load of waves. But it did seem a little bit random. The idea is you just dodge the waves and you'll be fine. And he also has something called Befouled, which is just debuffs that are placed on random targets that just places small healing absorb shields to those targets. Once those players have received enough healing and the shield is removed, those players will explode and deal damage to anyone within 6 yards. So you need to make sure that if you are affected with this debuff, you don't stand on the rest of the raid.
Now when the boss decides to throw away his axe and go into the without axey sort of phase, what he will do, he'll throw the axe onto the ground and it will actually start dealing ticking damage to the entire raid for 30 seconds. So raid damage at this point really ramps up. Now, while he is disarmed, he will now start hitting the tanks much more quickly than he did before. But on top of this, all of his attacks will now attempt to cleave onto another player who is near the tank. And if there is no one nearby, the tank will just be hit twice. So the whole idea is that your two tanks are on top of each other, very similar to how Butcher works and everything, just so they don't get absolutely demolished with, you know, double hits and all that kind of stuff. But the main thing you need to worry about in this phase is something called Seeds of Destruction. This will just debuff random targets, and when the debuff does expire around 5 seconds later, these players will then shoot out 8 of these horrible purple waves in all directions around them. And if you have a large raid size like we did, a lot of people got this debuff, and there was a lot of waves going on, so it can get really hectic.
Now, they're all the abilities that the boss will do in both the axe phase and without the axe phase. But over the course of the fight, he'll also spawn these pillars. Now, the pillars themselves don't really do much at all. All they sort of do is AoE damage around them. So if you're stood right on top of them, you'll take a lot of damage. But they also do pulsing damage to the entire raid. But it's pretty much unnoticeable. It doesn't really do much damage at all. However, if any of these pillars are hit by the waves, so the waves from the seeds, which is obviously going to be a shit ton of waves, when the tank leaves the Shadow Realm, he'll also send out waves. And when the boss casts the cavitation, which is the waves behind him, if any single one of these waves hits a pillar, it will do a burst of unavoidable damage to everyone in the entire room, more or less one-shotting them. So that is the deadliest thing in this fight, and that is what is going to wipe you when you do this on live servers. Now, the way that these pillars spawn is that 4 fissures will appear on the ground in random places in the room, and after 5 seconds or so, a pillar will spawn out of them. If a player stands in one of these fissures, the pillars won't spawn at all. However, one of them is always going to be inevitable, and will spawn regardless. So with that in mind, you want 3 players to stand in 3 of the fissures and leave 1 of the fissures alone to spawn the crystal in it. Now, whatever pillar location you decide to spawn first, you should always choose the closest fissures after that point to spawn the pillar from, because you always want these pillars to be as close to each other as possible. So it's a lot easier to block waves that are incoming towards them because they're much closer, which means you kind of need to use less players, therefore less people are going to be taking damage, because when you are hit by these waves, it does do a fair amount, but ultimately it's nowhere near as bad as them hitting a pillar.
So just to summarize the whole thing, pretty much you'll choose one random location for the first pillar to spawn, and then just hope that other fissures will spawn near there, and just don't touch those ones. You do want the pillars all grouped up, makes soaking a hell of a lot easier, and you'll generally have a nicer time.
However, when it actually comes down to the soaking of the waves, you can't have everyone do it. Now, the reason for this is that when players actually stand inside the fissures to soak them, they'll receive a debuff called latent energy, and this lasts for around 2 minutes or so. While you have this debuff, if you're hit by any of the waves, you'll explode just like a crystal pillar does. So you'll just instantly blow up the entire raid.
Yeah, you're pretty much a mobile player, Crystal, and it's very, very bad. And it can become very, very difficult to avoid waves, like yourself, as well as people trying to soak all the other ones. You've pretty much got to pretend you are the pillar.
Yeah.
And, like, if you get hit, everything goes horribly, horribly wrong. And the thing is, you can't just go and stand right where all the pillars are, because they're doing a lot of AoE damage very close to them. So you got to try and find, like, maybe another safe spot, or you just got to pretty much run around like a headless chicken, and just hope that you don't get hit by all this stuff. But yeah, it's pretty simple. Whoever does soak these fissures, make sure they don't soak any of the waves, at least until their latent energy debuff is gone.
And for this latent energy debuff, just for the people who are worrying about normal mode, I don't think it's actually in the normal mode. It's only in the heroic and the mythic mode.
Oh, okay.
So that's something nice, I guess, for the normal mode people. But yeah, that is pretty much the encounter. It's very, very simple if you look at it in that way. I mean, there's not a hell lot to it. It's basically, do you have debuff? Okay, don't soak waves. If you don't have debuff, soak as many waves as you possibly can that are heading towards pillars. And apart from that, just single target nuke down the boss.
Yeah, it's just he hurts a lot.
Yeah, a lot of his abilities are very, very dangerous.
Yeah,
so
it gets pretty hectic, but assuming they'll maybe like kind of tweak those numbers a little bit. He is kind of like an end of wing boss, so he's kind of supposed to be quite difficult. But there was a point in the PTR as well when we was testing it first on heroic that the pillars would spawn in the walls.
Yeah,
that's fun.
But sometimes they didn't spawn at all.
Yeah, but
which was brilliant.
Yeah, that actually made the fight very easy. But on mythic, they did seem to fix all that sort of stuff, so we should be nice and clean when we see it on live. But yeah, it's looking to be a good fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
But thank you very much for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this video, then please do drop us down a like. It helps us out a lot. And if you'd like to see any of our other 6.2 videos, there is a playlist in the description. Just click on that. It'll take you straight to it. Every single Hellfire boss is there. And we'll see you on the live stream.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.